All right. Welcome back. This is a Built by Vitality podcast. We are 100 episodes in. My name is Steve Pinkerton, and as always, I'm sitting next to
Philip Lewis.
Today, we're going to talk about some life lessons that a friend of my dad's passed on to me before I did one of my first deployments in the Marine Corps. And I'm going to talk about this guy and the impact he had on me. I'm going to go through some of the things. I've had this for almost 20 years, and I've made some copies of it for people, and it's been something that I probably look at 4 to 5 times a year. I keep it next to my desk and where I keep all my envelopes, and every once in a while I'll pull out and go through and take a look at it. And it's really incredible how smart this guy was and how much common sense he had, and I think you'll enjoy some of this as well. So, but before that, I told Phil almost 2 years ago, I said, hey, let's do a podcast. Let's see how it goes. We'll do it for a year, and then we'll see how it goes, you know? And like I said, we're 100 episodes in.
Man.
Did you think we were going to make it 100 episodes?
Oh, of course.
Okay. All right.
Did you?
I don't know.
I guess not.
I didn't have a huge warm fuzzy that we're going to make it 100 episodes.
All right.
But we are going to take a sabbatical from the podcast. Phil's not super pumped about it, but I think, not to get too far into it, I've just, it's been a little frustrating over the last 100 episodes because there's so many opinions that I think I would have liked to share, but we live in a world where we can't really share those all the time because I'm a business owner, and apparently, as a business owner, you're not allowed to have opinions. Mm-hmm. As a veteran, I'm not allowed to have opinions. Everyone's too sensitive. We live in a society where feelings are hurt, and cancel culture is a real thing. And I've just become a little bit turned off by the whole thing where I've got to, we'll talk through some topics, and we'll have to edit a bunch of stuff out because we're cautious of who could possibly be offended by some of the things we talk about. It's kind of taken some of the fun out of it for me. And I did this for, just to see if we could do it, to see if there was some value to some people. And I think that some people enjoyed this and mm-hmm. got something out of it, and other people decided that they wanted to stop listening because they disagreed with what we were talking about, and that's fine too. But I don't want to be in a position to where I have to be concerned about speaking my opinion, Mm-hmm. So we made it 100 straight weeks. We never missed a Monday launch.
Really good.
Ever.
Yeah.
And we've always had something to talk about. There's been times where we're like, man, what are we going to talk about? And then we end up having like 3 things to talk about. So,
because I came up with them.
Yeah. Yes. And then Phil will be the first one to say that, all the most viewed episodes will be the ones where he talks about, what movies to watch. And,
yep.
So anyway. Let's get back to it. This is a letter. The guy's name is Lieutenant Colonel Bill McCaffrey. And Bill McCaffrey was in the Army, and a lieutenant colonel in the Army. And he was back when it was a different world. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to think he was the biggest human being I'd ever met. He was just this big, I don't know, he was probably 6'3" or 6'4", 220 pound, and he had this real loud, big, deep laugh, and you'd get him laughing, and you could hear him from a mile away. And it was just something about the way that I remember him talking to people, and he was the nicest guy, but he also had that look, like when you looked at him, you're like, man,
don't mess with this guy.
This is somebody that has done some very, very bad things to some very bad people, And he's the reason that, really I decided I was going to be in the military. It wasn't till, he was a big hunting buddy of my dad's. And I don't know, when I first met him, I was a young kid, and man, he was a nice guy. And so I initially wanted to join the Army because I talked to him. He was a Ranger, and he'd done a bunch of the Special Forces stuff. He was just a very decorated soldier. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. And so he kind of helped me in the process and helped me figure out what path to kind of go and how to decide how to approach the training and what I needed to do from a recruiting perspective. And when I went into the recruiting office, I had done really well. I mean, I just finished my senior year in college. I played football and for the last couple of years, and I played some basketball in college. So it wasn't like I was out of shape. I was competitive. I worked out all the time, and had no issues. I didn't have tattoos. I didn't have any drug waivers. There was my grades
Criminal
were
stuff.
No DUIs, nothing. And so the recruiters loved me. It was a easy submission. And I'd signed up, and we had actually had a party. My dad had a kind of going away party. I was supposed to leave for Fort Benning that next day, and everybody came out and had a big kind of get together. And I remember talking to Lieutenant Colonel McCaffrey, and he was really excited for me. And the next morning I woke up and I was loading up my car, and I think I was driving to get gas or something, and my cell phone rang, and it was an old Nokia, the old Nokia little mini cell phone you got kind of like hold. And it was my recruiter, and he was really upset, and he said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. Something happened, and I don't know what to tell you, but you weren't selected for this officer candidate school." I said, "What do you mean? I'm packed up. We had a party last night. I'm literally in my car getting ready to leave for Fort Benning, Georgia. Like, what do you mean I'm not selected?" He's like, "I don't know. We went to submit everything. Everything went through. And then this morning we got a letter saying that something was wrong." And I think, so at that point in time, like, I was like, "Hey, what can I do? Like right now, should I just drive there and like show up and they'll let me go?" And he was like, "No, man, don't go. And I remember I like pulled over at some park in my hometown, and I'm like, "What in the world?" I called Lieutenant Colonel McCaffrey and I said, "Hey, sir, I don't know what to do." He's like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Give me that name." So I'm giving him names and numbers. He's making phone calls, and he calls me back and said, "Hey, listen, I don't know what to tell you, but someone dropped the ball. Someone messed up some paperwork. You're not going." I said, "Oh my God, what in the world?" And he's like, "Look, everything happens for a reason. Just go home, relax."
I'd have freaked out.
We'll work through this. So now I'm like, dude, graduated college. Mm-hmm. I'm back in my hometown. I told everybody I was leaving for the Army. We had a big party.
I miss you, man.
And now I'm like, I'm back home. and now the Army doesn't want me. In my eyes, I'm like, what is going on? So I moved down.
I realized you were too big.
Yeah, I wish. So I moved down to Lansing with my brother, my older brother. I live with him. And I'm training, and I'm at a powerhouse gym in downtown East Lansing. And across the street from that is a Marine Corps recruiting station, officer selection station. And I remember I walked in, and the guy was there, and he was a captain. And I said, "Hey, I'd like to talk about the process." And he laughed at me because I was like 240 pounds, and you got to run 3 miles and do 20 pull-ups. And he's like, "You're way too out of shape for this. Come back in a couple months when you're serious." And I was like, I left that, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world? The Marines don't want me. The Army told me I wasn't good enough. I don't have a job. Like, what am I doing? And so every morning for the next, 30 or 40 days, I'd go out and run 4 or 5 miles in the morning, and I just feel sorry for myself. I'm just mad at the world. I show back up, get selected, long story short, join the Marine Corps, and have the greatest 8 years of my life. But before I deployed, I had stayed in touch with Lieutenant Colonel McCaffrey, and he always ask me how I was doing, and he'd call and talk to me. And he sent me this letter, and he says it's something I send to all my children and grandkids, and it's my own thoughts. And it's this 3-page piece of paper, and I remember sitting down, and I think I was on the bus to go to the airport to fly over to Kuwait at the time, and I'll read some of these, and I wish I had time. I wish we had a 4-hour podcast to go through each one of them, because they're so obvious, but until you hear someone like him explain it to you, it just didn't make sense. One of them is, the most important thing is to know who you are and to like that person. The latter is possible only after you make that person into someone likable. I love that. Once the above is accomplished, be comfortable with who you are. Don't ever try to be someone else, someone you aren't. It is a secret to happiness. And how many times have we talked about that, where people try to, how easy is it to see through someone pretending to be someone they're not?
Yeah.
How easy is it to see through someone that doesn't want to be where they are? We see it all the time, especially on social media. Mm-hmm. I mean, we see it all the
Everywhere.
time. Everybody wants to pretend to be something they're not, and it's so obvious. Be able to judge yourself, but don't be too severe in those judgments. No one is perfect. Whether it's pain, disappointment, or victory, it too shall pass. So if under duress, endure. It won't last forever. On the other hand, when things are going great, don't get too cocky. Things are almost sure to swing the other way. That's a big one for me, is understanding that it's easy when things are going well to be in a good mood and to be fun to be around. Mm-hmm. It's how do you respond when things don't go your way? And then having the foresight to understand that when things are good, they're not going to be good forever.
Yeah.
So if you can prepare for those bad times, financially, with your relationships, whatever it might be, man, that'll make a difference.
Somebody told it to me one time. They said, you're either headed towards a problem, going through one, or coming out of one. That's the cycle.
Yeah.
Heading towards it, you're in it, or you're coming out of one.
Yeah.
Just that's what it does.
And when you're down, you won't be down forever.
Yeah. You want to go back to the cycle starts over.
Set realistic goals for yourself. To overreach will lead to failure, which is okay as long as you have the mental toughness to accept it with grace, nor allow disappointment to stifle your confidence and drive. Still, you must always aim high enough that even when you fail, what you do achieve is meaningful and worthwhile. And I really like that one. And then this is one that he and I talked about as I was leaving for that deployment. He said, remember, sometimes not getting what you want is a wonderful stroke of luck. And
yeah, but it sucks.
Man, it sucked. It really did. But here's the crazy thing about that. And I was going to leave for Army Officer Candidate School in Fort Benning, Georgia. I don't go. A week later, I go on a date with Jess back in our hometown, meet her, start our relationship, and 3 months later or 4 months later, I go to Marine Corps OCS, and we stay together. We got married. We've been married for 18, 19 years, 2 kids.
So what you're saying is you had bad luck by meeting Jess. You could have went to Army.
Well, think about
Officer
that.
Candidate School, never met her.
Yeah. If I would have went to OCS
You probably
that
wouldn't
morning,
have went or met her or anything.
There's no probably about it.
You wouldn't have at all.
100% would not have met. I had met her, but we had never hung out. We never talked. No, never. And there was a 0% chance.
Or is Jess not lucky? I have to ask her.
Imagine her. She's like,
wish you would have went to the Army.
But that's what's so crazy is at the time you're like, wow, there's no way that this is part of a bigger plan. There's no way some idiot made a mistake
screwed the rest of my life
and
up.
I'm the one that's got to pay the price. This is not fair. And just that, sometimes not getting what you want is a wonderful stroke of luck. And now maybe Vitality's never happens. You know, maybe all this stuff never. I mean, it's just crazy what that one turn turns into. So, always take time to improve yourself, even if it's just an hour of reading a day. Above all else, know your job inside and out. Look for innovative ways to improve your operation. Your motto should be, the difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer. And that was something he and I talked about as well. As he said, you know, you're not going to know anything when you get to your first unit, when you deploy. You're going to know nothing. But just understand what your job is and just know it cold, everything. And, you know, as an artillery guy, that's what I did. I tried to learn every part of it so that no one understood the basics more than I did. And just him urging me to read put me off on a huge reading. I mean, I got obsessive compulsive over it. I need to talk to this guy. I mean, I would read so many books. I read every military book I get my hands on. I love this next one too. Judge your success by what you had to give up in order to get it. In other words, great achievements and great love involve great sacrifice and risk. And we've talked about that before. There is nothing that you are going to achieve that's worthwhile that didn't cost something, that didn't hurt to get there, that wasn't a tough decision. That wasn't like, man, it kept me up for a couple weeks, like, what do I do? But then you'd make that decision and you see the backside of it and you're like, man, I'm so glad I did that. Yep. Hard, dedicated work can make up for many shortcomings, whether physical or educational. Too many people tend to forget that life is a constant challenge. The well-educated and the gifted sometimes overlook this fact and set their instruments on cruise. Some of the wisest and most successful people are those who never showed much promise in school nor demonstrated any particular talent when young. And I think that's not everybody's Elon Musk.
No.
Not everybody has that ability. The thing that makes him so incredible is he's got this crazy work ethic and he's incredibly intelligent. And when you can combine those two, like for me and you, we're very hard workers, but we're not very intelligent. You know? Well, I am, you're not.
Exactly.
Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
But I think I've always said there'll be a lot of smart people around us, a lot of people that are smarter than we are, but I refuse to be outworked by people. I will not. I won't do it. I will not let it happen. And I think stubbornness is one of the reasons why people can be somewhat successful and not be super intelligent. It's just an ability to suffer more than somebody else. And I think that the Marine Corps gave me that skill, and that's what he's talking about. I like this one too. This was big in the Marine Corps. Always respect the office of those over you, even if you don't respect the person holding that office. That's your job. And for me, there was a lot of times where I didn't agree with what my boss, how he was handling things or what he was doing. But I learned so much more from the ones that did a bad job, almost more than I did from the ones that were awesome. You know, and that's across the board. You know, you don't have to like me as a person. You might not think I run the gym right, but you need to respect that. You need to respect me, and then you can make changes and say, hey, you know what? Here's what I think we should do. The problem is, like I said when I opened this, and one of the reasons why we're not doing this podcast anymore after this is there is no constructive criticism anymore. No. Now, where it's
either this way or
I love someone that says, hey, man, you ever thought about doing it this way? Because I'm like, man, no, I didn't. And I never thought about that. That's crazy. Let's do it. Or most likely what I'm going to say is, yeah, you know what? I did think about that. But here's why.
Here's why I don't do that or didn't do that.
But to me, what that's telling me is, man, Philip is thinking about things like I'm thinking about things. He just didn't sit in the seat that I sat in long enough to understand why that wouldn't work, but he's still bringing me like solutions to problems that no one else is thinking about. And that's what I think is so beneficial. But people are missing the point on that because people can't take any criticism without being defensive and getting their feelings hurt. And it's too bad, you know? It's just too bad, because I can guarantee you, if Bill McCaffrey came to me and said, hey, I think maybe you should do this, this, and this, I'd be like, yes, sir. What? Done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I respect him so much. And if you don't have that person that can give you that feedback, who's keeping you in line? Who's keeping your true north? What?
Nobody except yourself.
We're that perfect that we're going to be able to keep the course? No. We're going to stray. Let's see. Don't join the complainers and uninspired. They will only dampen your enthusiasm. You have to be optimistic. The glass is always half full and not half empty. Therefore, avoid those who can't see things that way. Their influence will only slow you down. I mean, how many times we said that? They will steal all the happiness of your every day of your life if you surround yourself with those people.
Yeah.
You know, they'll find something.
I used to work at places everybody was miserable. I'm like, God, now I'm miserable.
Yeah, how hard is it to be happy?
You can't.
Yeah. Well, let me turn on Facebook, open up Instagram, watch the news. That is the problem. Everything is negative.
Yeah.
Everything's trying to pull people down, and it's impossible. You put a heart rate monitor, even on you that doesn't watch the news every night. You put a heart rate monitor on you,
I already know it
and
makes
you
me
watch
mad.
the news.
It already makes me mad.
Think about that.
I'll watch it once in a while, like just certain ones, like Tucker Carlson, all these guys and things that are going on, and I'm like, man, this is really getting under my skin that this is happening. Like, I need to just turn this off.
Yep. It's important to show an interest and enjoy those that you meet. I have found that you can learn something from every person you come across in life, even though in some cases the lesson may be what not to do. And I mean that there's no truer statement talked about. As soon as you think you know it all,
nope,
you're wrong. You're wrong. And everybody we can learn something from, because everybody came from a different background. You and I grew up different. We grew up in different places. We grew up in different states, different demographics. I mean, to think that I understand you and you understand me, it's crazy.
It's like grape and strawberry.
Yeah.
Totally different, man.
Philip's a peanut butter and Concord grape jelly guy, and I'm like, that would be the last thing I would do. I'm a peanut butter and strawberry.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
That's
all
a
day
northern
long.
thing all day.
Must be. Let me try and put through this a little bit here.
Makes me sick.
Try to put yourself in other people's shoes. It helps you understand their fears and prejudices, and that will enable you to lead, work for, or work with almost anyone you encounter. I love that. One of the great satisfactions in life is being part of an inspired team, pulling together unselfishly to reach a common goal. Teach that. And I remember when he had talked about that with me, and he talked about how he thought that would be the one thing I loved more than anything else about the Marine Corps was how close that organization is. And he talked about how much he loved working with the Marines when he was in the Army. And he was 100% right. I loved that part of it. I loved having everybody marching the same beat, man. Like everyone had one goal in mind, and be able to challenge. I mean, think about that. How many times in your life do you have 30 to 40 people all 100% engaged in one task, one mission?
Never.
Unless
it's something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be around that, and what helped me so much is you don't even think about this until someone like him puts it down on a piece of paper and says, hey, don't overlook this. Don't miss this part. This is one of the parts that I loved more than anything else. And I'm like, okay, yes, sir. You know, it is a rare privilege to be loved. Don't forget or abuse that. Keep your loved ones and dear friends close to your heart and your prayers. When they need help, be there for them. And I think that's another thing that, we don't like to talk about too much, but there's not a ton of people out there that truly love you.
Yeah.
And once you find those people, man, I trying to explain this to my girls. For some reason, they're in this stage where they give Jess a hard time all the time. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to put it into terms that they understand. And I'm like, imagine loving someone more than anyone else in the whole world and them treating you like crap. I'm like, that's what you're doing to your mom. And you know,
you don't realize that until you get older.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, nobody loves those girls more. I mean, I love my girls, but it's just different. My mom and their daughter, it's just different. And the one person that loves those two kids more than anybody else, they treat them worse than everybody else. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Never lose your sense of humor. I love that. You know, he talked about don't be the joker or the comic of the group. Just approach life with a grin and a smile. He talked about saving money. You know, he was one of the first guys to talk about, hey, every time you get paid, take a percentage out and save it. Just save it, you know. And he also talked about, as it relates to physical danger, stay alert. Don't put yourself at risk through carelessness. Also, don't allow foolish bravado to tempt you into taking unnecessary chances. When it's needed, however, act boldly and with courage. Take an instant to size up the situation, then move with all the speed and strength you can muster. Don't panic. It can screw things up royally. That fraction of an instant hesitation is enough time to allow you to make the right life-altering decision. And that's what he was just, he was so smart when it came to that. He said, you know, as a new lieutenant, you're going to want to prove yourself. And he said, I watched so many people make those mistakes. He said, you don't prove yourself by acting foolish. You don't prove yourself by taking risks. Yeah. But he said, when you decide to do something, you have to commit 100% to it. And I've taken that with me through business, through every part of my life. When I decide to do something, it's not halfway. I'm 100% all or nothing. And his final thoughts, he related some of these to, he called it from the Orient. So these are like Chinese proverbs type of things. Some of my favorite one is, when you have taken one foot out, it becomes easier to remove the other, as it relates to commitment. God has a worm for every bird, but he doesn't deliver it to the nest. You know, so rice eaten is soon forgotten. Also, when eating the fruit, remember who planted the tree, on gratitude and giving credit to those who earned it. I love this one. You must dig the well before you are thirsty, on preparation. The birds of worry are good, just don't let them nest in your hair, on becoming a pessimist or a worrywart. When you lose, don't lose the lesson. And I love that one. You know, he was big on, you're going to lose, you're going to make mistakes, but you better learn from them.
Yeah.
A dead fish doesn't smell better with time, on trying to conceal bad news. Remember that silence is sometimes the best answer, as it relates to patience. Don't test the depth of the water with both feet. And when moving forward, never burn the bridges behind you. If silence is golden for the wise, think how much better it is for the foolish. And that's, I mean, I remember, you know, he had so much of this, and he's just one of those guys. I wish that he passed away, years ago, and but he truly was. Some people are like larger than life, your parents, your dad's always kind of that larger than life figure, but this guy was just, I mean, I could picture him clear as day. And he's got a son. He's got more than one kid, but his I believe it's his oldest son is like a legit warrior, man. He joined the army, and I think he was in Green Beret or something. He's worked his way all the way up, but he's certainly followed in his footsteps. And I never met him, but man, I tell you, every year I'd see Mr. McCaffrey. Man, that guy, he would He was just a super amazing individual. So I got to make sure. I've made a couple copies of this, but I want to make sure I don't ever lose that, because I'd be really upset if I lost that. So those are the
lockbox.
Yeah, those are the lessons that I learned from Lieutenant Colonel Bill McCaffrey, and that is a wrap for the Built by Vitality podcast. I'm not saying we're done forever. I'm saying that we're going to take a little sabbatical, and I hope you guys enjoyed the 100 episodes, and we might jump back on, and we'll see.
Never know.
Yeah. But until next time, thank you guys for being a part of the journey. This is the Built by Vitality podcast.